Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wisdom Seat podcast. My name is Bill Moriarty. Today, I have a recording for you from Anam Thubten. He came to our area in 2023 for several events, and one of them was a public talk given at the Philadelphia Shambhala Center. And this is the recording from that talk. Enjoy.
I'm very thankful to Shambhala Center for inviting me and to organize this Dharma event. So as a human being, we are all born on this planet with this amazing mind and also physical body as a gift of the life. But we tend to make very different choices as a human being. So our path is not always universal. And not only that, in general, people make their own choices, but even, let's say, you may be born into a family with maybe brothers, sisters, but as the time goes by, everybody will make very different choices. And some of them may end up going to university, become, let's say, scientist, or some may end up being a dentist, or maybe a farm grower, and some of them may actually become a very much mover and shaker in society, like running political office. And some of them may end up very good meditators or yoga instructors. And some of them, they never meditate. And some of them would be very much introspective, who will love to read books like Dharmapada, Bhagavad Gita, and Tibetan Book of the Dead. And some of them would not have any interest in spirituality. And so they may end up reading something else. Maybe books on philosophy, or maybe not. Maybe just lots of fictions and novels too. And so we are all born as a human being, pretty much at the equal level with what they call Buddhism, Tathagata, the potential to become Buddha or awakened. But you see, we always choose different paths. And not only we choose different paths, but even as an individual, you had actually many paths unfolding in your life. You can choose many paths, by the way. It's never too late to change your mind and choose a whole different path. I would like to share a little bit a personal story about how I choose this path, this Buddhist path. And not because I want to talk about myself, but hopefully my story would have some kind of relevance to what I'm trying to express. Very recently, somebody asked me to write my memoir. I said, wait, maybe it's not time to write my memoir. Maybe, when I get really old, and then I can write my memoir, if anybody is even interested in reading my memoir. And so I told them, maybe we can write a little bit longer my bio, than you see on my website, which has only one paragraph. And I just wrote a recently longer version of my bio, which has 2 pages. But I told them I'm not ready to write my memoir. It seems there are more other things I can do in my life. But which really made me think about the role I play and the role all of you play. We are all playing roles in this, involved and our roles are very much also part of the society sustaining itself. So our roles are quite important. And I remember that I grew up in a family run by my grandparents who are very devout Buddhists. And they were pretty much illiterate. They really didn't know how to read Buddhist literatures, except my grandfather knew how to read simple prayers. But they're very devout Buddhists, and they always chant mantras. My grandma used to always chant mantras, and she tried to embody the principle of Buddhism to the best of ability: honesty, good heart, compassion, and respecting the law of karma. So she was a very good a spiritual model to me, even though she didn't sit on a stage and gave lectures every evening, and she didn't do that to us. But she had such a powerful impact on my life. But there is also the lost generation of a Buddhist tradition in Tibet. From 1959 until the end of, until the late of the 1970s, hardly anybody actually become monks or monastics because of the politics in Tibet. And then towards the end of 1970s, there was a big political change in Tibet where monasteries were allowed to reopen and people were allowed to go to monastery or to become ordained as yogis or monastics. And around the same time, one of my aunts died, and my family's relatives invited a group of monks, and they did lots of ceremonies, pujas. And I really loved those monks. I thought they're such wonderful. I really love their hairstyle. Even though they have no hair, that's their hairstyle. And so I decided to mimic them, and I asked my grandparents to give me permission to sit with them, which I did. I sat with them, and I kind of started chanting with them. My reading was very poor. And then slowly my desire to really delve into Buddhist tradition becomes very strong. Even though I had lots of choices, actually. I could go to school or go to college and maybe become a civil servant right now. And also in Asia, you get retired very early. By now, perhaps I would be enjoying retirement as a civil servant. But so I chose that path, the Buddhist path. And then I, as you mentioned, went to a monastery and met with a really wonderful Dharma teachers who remind me of this Dharma lines of the past, like Malaripa, Majik Labdun, Tapopa, and Longchenpa, and so forth. I feel I'm so lucky to run into these Dharma lines. And just like here tonight, when I look around, and we all are here because either you are formally, or like you are really serious, well-seasoned practitioners of Buddha Dharma already, or you have a interest in meditation or in wisdom of Buddhism, or maybe to find wisdom means to maybe work with your thoughts, emotions, or maybe you are seeking a greater purpose of your life. And And this is a very wonderful, because in other words, we could say there's a flame of a divine is burning in the house of our consciousness. And that divine flame is your impulse to wake up. And that's why you are here right now. There's no any another reason. I always tell that when people come to any kind of Dharma talks, I always tell people that this is the reason why you're here, because this is not most fun thing you can do right now, right? You can go out, the streets are really amazing, When I was driving with my friends, I thought, this reminds me of a little bit of Paris. Part of me really just want to just get out of car and just walk around, pretend that I'm in Paris. Say, oh, really? I do have to talk? Maybe some of you can give a talk for me tonight. I'd rather to walk around and walk on the bridge, because this bridge just reminds me of these bridges they built on the rivers and Paris. Maybe this was designed after Paris, right? Somebody thinks so. It's possible too. So there are lots of fun things we could be doing right now, right? We could be maybe staying at home and having some nice meal, and maybe just watch Netflix. And that's very possible too. Just like many people did, by the way, during the lockdown, lots of people meditated and then they watched Netflix. I have lots of friends. Many Buddhists ask, what did you do during that 2-year lockdown? Netflix and meditation. I said, yeah, that's pretty good, actually. But we're all here for some reason. And I think there's a strong impulse in each of us to wake up. And there's a reason why we are here, actually. And there's also mystery, right? There's totally mystery in this whole feeling, this a divine flame. That's called divine flame of the impulse to wake up. There's a mystery. And that mystery is we kind of don't know why that flame is burning inside us, but not in somebody's consciousness. That's totally a mystery. And that mystery is actually not something we can even ever figure out, but that's up to the great unknown. And Jigme Langpa, he is not only great Dzogchen master, but he is a great poet. And he was perhaps one of the most brilliant poets. Not only that, his poems are ecstatic poems, because when you read them, there are lots of joy and devotion, celebration, and magic too. So there's one poem that he wrote. It's called the Song of the Feast, that everybody actually chant, especially during the Ganachakra, the Tantric Buddhist feast. If you have been to Tsokon Ganachakra, you may have heard already this song. Many yogis in Nyingma tradition and also in the Kwargyal tradition often sing this song of the feast, which begins by this verse said that we are all here together as a fruition of, as a manifestation of pure, benevolent aspirations and good karmas of the past. So we could say that we are on this path and we are experiencing the bodhicitta, the aspiration to wake up for the benefit of all, because maybe this whole, that impulse I'm talking about is just a wonderful, auspicious manifestation of aspirations, benevolent aspirations of the past and the good karma of the past. So something we should even celebrate and to cherish it. So then if you, which you are, if you are somebody who's that flame, that divine flame is burning inside you, then you basically are very much interested in discovering not just your potential, but your spiritual potential. And that including understanding your mind, the workings of your mind, even a whole transcendent realms of your consciousness, or to develop even selfless altruism, like compassion, not just compassion, but compassion that embraces everyone, and love, unconditional love towards humanity, all the way to even transcending yourself. And so we could say that there is almost a pyramid of a consciousness. And the lowest level is maybe the grasping to the ego, the grasping to the separate self, and then can go through the development of a compassion, love, courage, and then maybe the very top of that pyramid of consciousness could be actually transcending self totally. But the one who is actually somehow walking on that journey from self-grasping to the self-transcendence is actually a bodhisattva. And I come across this term many years ago, a term coined by Rasher, which goes something like this: going from self-centered to the other-centered. I think that is the path of a bodhisattva. So bodhisattva is who is basically walking on that inner journey and evolving or ascending from that very bottom of that pyramid, which is the self-grasping, attachment to separate self, all the way to the transcendence of self. Bodhisattva is a very wonderful ideal, a noble model that we can actually use in a modern time. I think modern world needs some kind of ideal or some kind of, that's a sacred model that we can aspire to become. I cannot imagine anything better than a bodhisattva. And so we are here inviting everybody to become bodhisattva, not just Buddhist. My friend Jiwana Messi, perhaps many of you know who she is. She is a really wonderful being and ecologist, and she's a very, very wonderful being, basically. And she said, I didn't hear that she was sent, but I heard through somebody else. She said, periodically, we don't need more Buddhists, but we need more bodhisattvas. And can make sense. I think we have lots of Buddhists in this world, especially if you go to Asia, there are a lot of Buddhists actually, and which is good. If you're running an incense business, that will be very good. You won't have a shortage of customers. You can actually sell lots of incenses. I'm sure there's more value than that. Just having more customers who buy your incenses. But bodhisattva is a really perfect, a noble human ideal, sacred model that we can use. And so we can hold the aspiration to become a bodhisattva, as well as you can invite the whole society to actually become a bodhisattva. Because every human being has the capacity to embody the principles of a bodhisattva, to become actually a bodhisattva. You don't have to be even Buddhist in that sense to become a bodhisattva. Anybody can be actually bodhisattvas. By the way, I think there are a lot of bodhisattvas these days. I feel that there are so many bodhisattvas. There are a lot of young bodhisattvas these days who care about the issues, these pressing issues that the humanity is facing, like poverty, inequality, issues of inequality, equity, justice, ecological issues, etc. And so the bodhisattva is a very wonderful sacred model that we can use. And this is not a new model at all. The bodhisattva, that the whole ideal, that noble ideal or model was there in the very much birth of Buddhist teachings. And for example, it is said that the Buddha remembered in his awakening that he was born as a bodhisattva 500 times before we become awakened. And then also there are bodhisattvas teachings, like the bodhisattvas practices are taught in the Mahayana Sutras, and also we have a bodhisattva's ordination, where you actually take a bodhisattva's vow. You can be formally ordained as a bodhisattva. Many Buddhist sanghas often offer the bodhisattva's ordination ceremony, and usually you can sit in the presence of somebody and then you can be ordained as a bodhisattva. But it is said that the bodhisattva's ordination is very unique. Usually, if you are becoming a monk, you have to take the ordination from a living monk or nun. But bodhisattva's ordination, you don't actually have to take that ordination from a living master. You can take the vow pretty much on your own. You can take the bodhisattva's vow in front of another living spiritual master, or in front of a sacred monument, a statue, or you can even visualize clouds of bodhisattvas, like 8 bodhisattvas, and you can take bodhisattva's ordination from them. Or you can take bodhisattva's ordination in front of mountains, rivers. Anything can be the witness for you to take bodhisattva vow. This shows that we are ready to be bodhisattva, actually. We are always ready to be bodhisattva. So bodhisattva is very wonderful, sacred model or sacred persona who is on this journey, lifelong journey, who is going over from self-centered to the other-centered, who is actually traveling, who is ascending from the bottom of that pyramid of consciousness all the way to the summit. That's what bodhisattva is. And so here, I think in the end, the invitation is to really become bodhisattva. And that is said, and then in the Mahayana Sutras, there is this kind of repetitive statement which goes, bodhisattva with the compassion but without wisdom is bound. Bodhisattva with wisdom but without compassion is very bound. So that bodhisattva is bound, even though he or she is bodhisattva, which means when there's an imbalance between wisdom and a compassion, that bodhisattva cannot actually ascend, cannot continuously evolve. So that imbalance becomes actually kind of obstacle. And recently I was invited by this very wonderful Buddhist meditation center called the Spirit Rock, which is situated in Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Maybe some of you have been there. It's a pretty well-known Buddhist meditation center. Many people go there to learn how to practice mindfulness mainly. And they invited me to give some talks. And it was a very intimate group. They didn't invite everybody. And we sat together for maybe 3 days. I offered a little bit of talk. And then one of them said that he is working with a lot of social activists and also environmental activists. And he said, all these people have very good heart. And that's why they're actually very much almost fighting for the well-being of humanity. So they do have good heart. They do have compassion. But he said, but they're missing something. And they're all very exhausted. And they're sometimes so tired. And they don't know how to work with their emotions. Many of them stressed out. And I totally understand where he's coming from. I also see lots of people in these days who have such good heart, who have so much compassion towards the humanity, towards everybody, towards even animals. But sometimes many of them don't know how to embody equanimity. And not only sometimes there's a danger of falling into this kind of traps, like some kind of trap almost. We call this the pitfalls of the path of Bodhisattva, where people can really get lost in the divisions. Us versus them, we are the good and they are not so good, you see? And they have always perceived enemies, and they can be sometimes really lost in anger, moral indignation, anger, and that can lead into sometimes violence, a form of aggression too. So this reminds us that we also need balance between wisdom and compassion. So compassion alone is not enough. But I would like to talk a little bit about compassion and then go into the wisdom as perhaps the Buddha said so. So what is compassion? I think compassion is in general intrinsic to we human beings. We are all born with compassion. I think we have this kind of Buddha DNA, Buddha impulse or something like that. If we speak from more a neurological point of view or scientific point of view, we have a Buddha DNA, if you can say that. Or we can say we have some kind of Buddha impulse. That's who we are. And but at the same time, yes, now and then the life or the universe can knock on your door. And even like sometimes circumstances become a catalyst to invite you to be in touch with that, the let's call Buddha impulse, compassion. You know, when you see somebody's suffering, you feel compassion. When you read the news about war violence, you feel compassion. You don't have to be a practitioner of compassion. That's a very funny story that I had many years ago. These 2 people, they're assassins, and they got a contract with another politician, and their job is to assassinate this politician, and they received all their device, gun, and also the whole instruction how to assassinate this other politician. And according to the instruction, this politician was supposed to come back every evening around 6 o'clock. So they went there and they were hiding behind whatever trees and waiting for him to come back with their guns. And it was 6 o'clock, he didn't show up. And then they waited, now it's 8 o'clock, he didn't show up. Now it's 12 o'clock, he didn't show up. And then Assassin A looked at Assassin B, said, this is really very confusing matter, because according to the instruction, he was supposed to come back at 6 o'clock, now it's already 12 o'clock. What's going on? And then Assassin B said, I hope he's okay. So this is maybe not too story, but a good story. It tells that we are compassionate beings intrinsically. We just need a little catalyst. And sometimes catalyst can be very funny. That opens our heart and feel that actually we are living bodhisattvas. If we can let go of our ego and all the defenses, just closing our heart. I actually heard the stories about people and who felt their heart is so closed for a long time, and they will read a news, remember, news. And I know one person actually read the news about this immigrants trying to cross the border between the United States and Mexico. I think these immigrants are traveling from maybe Central America, and he saw a picture of a family with a little child, and he started sobbing, and his heart was open from their own. So I also remember this story about some very famous Christian minister, and he built one of those mega churches. By the way, this must be in America. I don't think there are mega churches in Europe. They sound very American, right? Phenomena. Mega church with a big parking lot, and he was a very fiery preacher. He would go on stage, jump, and talk about hell and condemnation. And his church got really big, like 1,000 to 2,000 people attend his sermons. And one day he was sitting in his living room, and he watched news on TV, and he saw a natural disaster happening somewhere in this world. And he felt in that moment that his heart was open. And he felt that the message of Christ is not about condemning the sinners, but it's about love. And he went back, he changed his sermon completely, he started talking about love, compassion. But he saw that his congregation began to dwindle. In the end, he had just a handful of people who come to his Sunday sermons. People love to hear actually hatred, condemnation rather than love. And that can happen too, So what I'm trying to say is that you see there are moments that life and the universe actually opens your heart. And that happens often. I'm sure that compassion is not a strange phenomenon to human beings. We all know what compassion is. And we feel compassion here and there. Compassion is, of course, in many ways, the very force, the force of the heart, the soul, that allow us to actually survive. If there's no compassion, the human species would not actually survive. The only reason that we are surviving as a species is because of the power of the compassion. So there is a lot of compassion actually. Compassion is actually everywhere. And the world is filled with compassion too, in some sense. But same time, I think what we need, or what Buddhism teaches, that not only that we should realize compassion is intrinsic to us, but we can develop compassion. So this is about developing compassion, cultivating compassion. So we don't have to wait some powerful moment to open our heart. So instead, we can cultivate the open heart, compassion, love, as a way to embody the Bodhisattva's path, or to become Bodhisattva. So, luckily, Buddhism developed all these amazing practices, and that help us to develop compassion, karuna. And we call sometimes compassion the muscle of the heart. And we also use sometimes the word the soul, because soul is a very lovely word, even though Buddhism rejects the existence of soul, but we use it as a more poetic expression. So compassion is the muscle of the soul, or muscle of the heart, you see? Not like the muscle of that organ we call heart, but muscle of the spiritual heart. So we can develop that muscle. And therefore, in the Buddhist tradition, there's whole practices. such as four dharana boards or four immeasurables, all the practice of Bodhisattva, and there are also sadhanas in Vajrayana, Avalokiteshvara sadhana, Tara sadhana, Aryatara sadhana, that really help us to develop that muscle of the heart. And through compassion, we become actually happier. And we become more courageous and fearless. And we become more self-actualized. And also, we become actually a source of healing to the world. Compassion heals. Compassion heals the wound of our heart too. It heals the wound of our own heart, but also it can heal the wound of hearts of the other people in this world. So this seems to be really perfect time where we need to invite everybody to practice compassion, because right now we are going through something as a world. I think we are at a crossroad in the history of humanity. And we all know that. Recently I was in this beautiful mountains at the foothills of the Sierra Mountains, Northern California. I went there because a group of people told me that I should go to Yuba River, very famous river in Northern California, and to just really feel this pristine, pure nature. And so finally I was able to make a time in my calendar, and I went with a few people to see Yuba River, and supposed to be really beautiful river in the mountains. So we walked there finally on this very, very treacherous road. I thought, oh, this is really good. Perhaps there will be very few people. So when I got there, there are like hundreds of people. And they were playing music, like they would play 4 or 5 Spanish music in Spanish language, and then they played the Cyndi Lauper's music called Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And then I sat there, I said, okay, this is good. This is sort of doing like tsok, like a Tantric Buddhist feast. I'm going to enjoy the whole thing. But at the same time, I remember I knew the Cyndi Lauper because 30 years ago, I stayed with a person who was my sponsor, and I hardly spoke English. This was like 30 years ago, and she always played Cyndi Lauper's music. And that's why I knew who she was. And I remember that song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. But at the same time, I also felt very nostalgic. And I felt 30 years ago, another era. I realized the world has been changed so much. In good way, many ways good, many ways not so good. I felt I really missed that whole era, which was 30 years ago. I think there was some kind of peace in the society. That's how I felt. I could be totally naive. And there were lots of problems, yes. We made lots of progress in the society everywhere. But also I felt there was some kind of innocence. Maybe something has to do with my age. I was much younger. But I felt there was some kind of general peace. And we were really optimistic 50 years ago. Remember? We are so optimistic. We believe that the world's going to keep getting better. There won't be any more poverty, no hunger. And eventually the whole world is going to wake up. We're going to have a planetary society. And there won't be so much, all these divisions between politics and countries, etc. We're really optimistic. Perhaps you're optimistic too, right? So I miss that time. And now we are living in a very interesting time. It's almost like this is a new era. It's a new eon. And that has lots of potential, but also has a lot of confusion. So lots of people actually feel this is very confusing time. But I also feel this is an amazing, extraordinary time. I think most extraordinary time in the history of humanity, where we have so much potential right now, potential to heal ourselves, and potential to bring a better society for everybody, not just for few people or for certain group of people, but for everybody. We do have the potential. But at the same time, also, we can be lost in anger, a diversion, hatred, and confusion, pessimism. And therefore, actually, we need the compassion more than ever. So if we direct our attention to the compassion as the guide, I think we will go through this, to me, transitional stage together. And I think we're going to arrive at a place sometime where we feel a sense of a healing and benevolency, and that everyone can enjoy this world. And so compassion is actually medicine right now for the world. I think best gift that you can offer to the humanity right now is compassion. And Buddhism, the compassion is limitless. In Theravada Buddhism, and they talk about four divine abodes. In Mahayana Buddhism, we talk about four immeasurables. And the idea for immeasurable is that you actually hold everybody in your heart, and you don't exclude anybody. Even those who challenge you, even those who don't agree with you, those who sit in the other side of the political spectrum, you see, who belong to the other doctrines. You see, in America, there's so much political division right now. It feels there are two countries. In Bay Area, we call the A person and AM person and FM person. And that means there are people who listen to AM on the radio channel, and there are people who listen to the FM, I think so, right? Like I think maybe M is like where you listen to some fiery Christian sermons and country western music, and then I think M or FM is where you have the public radio, you see, NPR with all the wonderful progressive talks, interviews. So we say there are two kinds of people: AM people and FM people. So I feel that now there's a division between FM people and AM people in this country. And the division is very strong right now. It's causing lots of disharmony, hatred, bias, prejudice, and which is not very fortunate thing to witness, you see. So compassion doesn't reject anybody. Compassion holds everyone. And compassion allows us to the humanness in everybody. There's humanness in everybody. And sometimes that's so difficult to see, right? The humanness in everybody, especially when we walk around with our persona. I think we all have this kind of mask we wear. And so that mask is often sometimes a kind of wall we hide behind. And also, we don't see the humanness in other people. We only see their wall, the facade of their being. But if you look through the facade of their perceived personality, there's a humanness. And that humanness is that we are all very much the same. We all want to be happy. We have people we love. Everybody has somebody who they love in some sense. And we all feel sadness. We all feel loneliness periodically. We all can be hurt. We all can be injured. We all can be traumatized, no matter who you are. We all can laugh at good jokes. And we all love a certain whatever, music, right? Maybe different music, but we all love music. So we are very much the same. We all cry. Everybody cries, sometimes by themselves. And so there's a humanness in each of us. And when we are able to look through that false facade or perceived personality, we are able to actually tap into the humanness, and therefore then we are able to hold everyone in our compassion, actually, and not to hate anybody, but to have a compassion towards everyone. As a theory, the definition of compassion in Buddhism is that your wish, your authentic wish, and that somebody, or whole group of people, or whole humanity, to be free from suffering and cause of suffering. This is a more doctrinal definition of karuna or compassion in Buddhism. And therefore there's even prayer, and that we often chant. To me, it's a prayer of awakening, liberation, healing. And I often recommend this prayer to everybody. And it's a very well-known prayer in Tibetan Buddhism. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. That is the prayer on the compassion. And usually we chant that prayer during ceremonies. So many people chant this prayer at least once a day, especially in the early morning when you wake up. It's I think it's such a powerful prayer. And that prayer has 4 lines on the 4 immeasurables: immeasurable compassion, immeasurable love, immeasurable sympathetic, empathetic joy, immeasurable equanimity. The whole prayer goes like this: may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. And may all sentient beings never be separate from joy that knows no sorrow. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and hatred. This is a prayer, the prayer of karuna, compassion, a prayer that I think everybody should recite. And of course, we can't expect that everybody will be reciting that prayer. But that prayer, we use that prayer every day in Tibetan Buddhism. And we also sometimes visualize everybody in our heart. We visualize our family members, our cousins that we are proud of, cousins that we are very critical about. We have lots of mischievous, troublemaker cousins too, right? Family is very, very sometimes difficulty, right? It's very, very difficult to have a whole family and relatives. And we visualize, all of them visualize our friends, we visualize even people who challenge us, and we visualize the whole humanity without any discrimination. We visualize people from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, everywhere, and welcome them as human sisters and human brothers. We welcome all of them as a member of the same tribe. We welcome all of them as actually a part of the human family. As Patamba said, who remember Patamba, who gave this teaching called 100 advice to the people of Dari. And each verse contains profound wisdom, but there's one verse. It says that the whole universe of the 6 lokas are your fatherland. So do not divide us versus them. So he invites us to transcend all the barriers that we created, but to invite the whole humanity as actually literally member of the same tribe, member of the same giant family, and to hold everybody in your heart. So this is the practice we actually visualize, literally. Family members, relatives, friends, neighbors, co-workers, classmates, and also people who evoke aversion in us. people who evoke a negative bias in us. I'm sure if we look in our heart, we'll find there are people who challenge us, and there are people whom we cannot love, and there are people we somehow feel judgment and prejudice. So here we visualize everybody and we wish all of them to be free from suffering, free from poverty, hunger, oppression, injustice, trauma, from all conceivable suffering. This is a compassion, and we actually literally sit on the meditation cushion and we do these practices to develop the muscle of your soul. And so as you develop the muscle of your soul, you become more and more a bodhisattva actually. If you use Western concept, you become more self-actualized, whatever that means. I really don't know what that means. I'm just throwing that word, self-actualization, because it sounds good. So you become more and more self-actualized. Yeah, that's sound very inviting, isn't it? And so you become more and more actually in bodhisattva, and you are able to live like bodhisattva, and more you're able to embody the spirit of bodhisattva every day and more in relationship to people, as well as also situations too. And so in the end, I think compassion helps us to not be lost in the pain of self-centeredness, but make us feel that we're great. Some of my friends, Buddhist teachers, said that in the West, they don't talk so much about no self, which is not good news because I wrote a book called No Self, No Problem. They said, yeah, we don't talk those things because many people don't like this idea of no self. And one time I gave a retreat on no self for 2 days in Houston, Texas. And this gentleman gave me a ride to the airport. He said, I give you a very good heartfelt advice as your friend. I said, please go ahead. He said, never tell Americans that there's no self. And this was after I gave a 2 days retreat on no self. I said, thank you. So lots of people really don't like this whole idea of no self because it's like negation. It's not a very easy thing to listen to. And some people like for some reason, I don't know. Some people really like all the negations. But some of them told me, maybe we should change the language instead of talking about transcending self, negating the existence of person's self. We should talk about to become greater inside, because that is more positive, inspiring. To me, it's the same thing anyway. And I love the negations, sorry. I'm a traditional Buddhist. I'm really touched all the negations somehow. I love the heart to sit there. No, I know, no. That music to my ears, those words of negations, but not to everybody. That's totally understandable. But they said, we have to talk and become greater. Yes, we can become greater. We all want to be great. We don't want to be actually scared, right? Nobody wants to be scared. Nobody wants to be finite. Nobody wants to be contracted if they have choice. Everybody wants to become courageous. Have you ever met somebody say, actually, I don't want to become courageous. I love being simple. Have you ever run into anybody? I love to be contracted. I like to be fearful, intimidated. I like to be miserable, confused. Nobody said that. Everybody deep down want to become great, want to become fearless, want to become liberated inside, want to have compassion, want to have a joy in their liberation. That's what we want, right? Deep down. So cultivating compassion actually empowers us, make us greater, make us a great being, a Maha Bodhisattva, great Bodhisattva. And as we develop compassion, we become less self-centered. And we become less attached to this illusion of separate self. And I think most human suffering come from because we're so identified with this separate self. And this is a root of all the suffering which Buddha said again and again. So by cultivating compassion, we feel that we are freeing ourselves from that group of the illusion of separate self, or the selfishness or self-centeredness. And also, compassion has a power, a healing power actually. Literally, compassion can heal us, heal our trauma. And today we're talking about trauma. Somehow at our conversation, was just spontaneous topic. We talk about trauma. Trauma is right now the forefront topic, which is good. We have to welcome this open conversation that is happening in society. I think we had lots of trauma, but we buried the trauma. We didn't have even platform where we can talk of trauma. We have a trauma. We have 1,000 years trauma that have been transmitted from psyche of one generation to the psyche of the next generation. We have a lot of unpurified traumas. And we have our own traumas too. And if you don't talk about trauma, I think we continue the pain. We continue to inflict pain on each other. We continue to inflict trauma on each other. So healing begins with a conversation too. So this is wonderful in many ways. I think it's something we should welcome, even though it's very sticky, it's a very messy process. We all know that. But sometimes healing is very messy. We have to have willingness to go through this messy process. And I do believe that if we bring the compassion towards yourself, if you feel you're hurt, if you feel you have a wound in your heart, I think compassion towards yourself can bring about healing. And not only that, you can extend that compassion towards the world. That can also bring about healing and to the wounded hearts of other human beings. So compassion has intrinsic power of healing. And many people say, even if they sit in the presence of somebody who is embodying compassion, they feel actually being loved. They feel being even healed. You know, many people in Tibet, when they have a suffering, sometimes they sit in front of wonderful Dharma teachers and they got healed. And they don't do even therapy. You see, there's no therapy in Tibet. There's no use of hallucinogens in all the Tibet, which we have. There are no this neuroscientific method. We didn't have any of them. We had these wonderful Buddhist teachers. We have chopas, shamans. Actually, when people had a psychotic break, which we had, many people had a psychotic break in Tibet, and there are no mental institution in Tibet, and there are no medicine for that, and there are no therapist, psychotherapist. You take the patient to your Lama or to a chopa, and then sometimes they don't even do anything. They just sit. And sometimes they may chant prayers, and many of them get healed right there. Because these people, these healers, Dharma teachers know one thing, that's to hold that person in a pure compassion without any judgment. So compassion has lots of healing power actually. And we can use the power of the healing power of compassion. And I think we have lots of confusing issues right now everywhere in society, in the families, in communities. I feel last few years or whatever, a huge wound opened in this world. Everywhere, the wound is open now. And now question is not so much what to do, but how we can hold that wound and how we can heal that wound. I think the only way we can heal the wound is if we bring the compassion. Otherwise, maybe there's no real healing. We just continuously just the pain, the trauma again and again. Maybe there's no solution. So whenever we feel our own trauma, whenever we see trauma of other society, I think we should bring the compassion towards everybody, without any kind of division, us versus them, good versus the bad. There's no good or bad. We have to hold everybody in our heart, and then there's a healing. So that's the karuna, compassion. And then how about wisdom? Wisdom, which is pranjana. Wisdom is a very big topic. As I said, if we develop compassion, but lacking in the development of wisdom, then compassion has actually its own downside. We can be sometimes angry, we can be stressed out, we can be very sometimes almost like a spiritual, religious martyr, and we can be really carried away with the compassion if there's not wisdom. As they say, road to the hell is paved by good intention. And that's very good warning, advice. So compassion alone is not enough. And we can be carried away. We can be very deluded in the name of compassion. So wisdom is very much needed. Try to imagine you're Garuda, the queen of all the birds. And you need 2 wings in order to fly. One wing is called compassion. The other wing is called wisdom. But what is wisdom exactly? In Buddhism, wisdom is not very specific. Wisdom is perhaps the biggest topic we can have. Wisdom. There are many levels of wisdom in Buddhism. The pranjana, like seeing the true nature of all things, awakening to the no-self, or impermanent nature of all things, or awakening to the emptiness, or the dharmata, or the Buddha nature of all beings. These are all called wisdoms. All these things are called wisdoms. So it's a very, in many ways, big topic. So people do practice in order to develop wisdom, which is a direct seeing into something, or direct seeing into true nature reality. But wisdom is different from knowledge. It's a direct seeing, it's a direct realization of something, either ultimate truth or emptiness or no self or Buddha nature, all beings. And therefore people practice literally inquiry in Buddhism. There are a lot of analytical meditations or just meditation, and that can lead you to gain a wisdom. But tonight I would like to kind of synthesize the wisdom aspects in conjunction with compassion. So to me, wisdom is also intuitive understanding. So let's not talk about emptiness tonight. Can we skip that topic, emptiness and no self? Can we save that for another time? So I think wisdom, when we talk emptiness, it can make sense sometimes, but tonight it's sort of out of the context. So let's not talk about emptiness, okay? Maybe another time, yeah? But I think wisdom is some kind of, to me, the emotional wisdom. It's emotional wisdom. They talk about this, there's something called emotional. Oh, yeah, I heard that term, emotional intelligence. So I like to use the word emotional wisdom rather than emotional intelligence. I have no idea what that means, emotional intelligence. How about emotional wisdom? How about emotional wisdom instead of emotional intelligence? What is the emotional wisdom? It's real wisdom. And this brings up the Chot practice. Chot was developed by Machig Labdwan, 11th century Tibetan female master Machig Labdwan, who is revered at the highest level by all lineage in Tibetan Buddhism. she's revered in the same level, in same spiritual stardom as a Milarepa, Takpopa, and Longchenpa, and so forth. And she developed this very powerful technique called Chut, cut and through, which is a beautiful fusion of Vajrayana, Tantric Buddhism, and the wisdom Parajana Paramita Sutta, and some of indigenous Tibetan spirituality. It's a very beautiful fusion. And in that, you often work with the visualizations. You actually visualize something. Yourself become the 5 Dakinis, the Buddha Dakini, the Vajra Dakini, the Rana Dakini, the Pamma Dakini, Karma Dakini. And you visualize yourself become these Dakinis, sky dancers, these female Buddhas who are dancing ecstatically. And you visualize you're holding all kinds of divine sacred implements like knife, kapala, and you dance in your visualization. And sometimes you visualize you're dancing on the monsters, demons, who are symbolic representation of your 5 inner poisons, the hatred, the arrogance, the unhealthy desires, the jealousy, and ignorance. And you visualize you're dancing on them. So the whole practice actually to cut through your grasping, your identification with this inner poison. To me, that is what wisdom is. And also like Manjushuru, which is a Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism. Manjushuru often holds sword. And that sword symbolizes the wisdom of cutting through. So in that sense, actually, as a emotional wisdom, the pranjana, the practice of wisdom is our ability to maybe let go of our attachment to our painful emotions, our greed, our hatred, our jealousy. That's what wisdom is. So it's not so much that you know something. It's not like that you discovered suddenly emptiness. That's good for you too. But in this context, if you really essentialize, if you really translate the wisdom development as a practical living spirituality, and then to me, it is the wisdom of the heart. It's the emotional wisdom that you learn how to embody equilibrium and then how to release your painful emotions. And your ability, your intuitive, whatever you like call your intuitive intelligence knows how to release your identification with hatred, unhealthy desire, jealousy, fear. That's what true wisdom is. Thank you, everybody. It's 8:30. Yeah? This is the time to stop. So the practice of wisdom is a lot of letting go. Huh? Very simple, isn't it? Thank you so much, everybody, for coming here tonight. Thank you. Thanks to Shambhala Center for inviting me and welcoming me with so much kind heart and allowing me to share Dharma with all of you. And thank you.
I hope everyone enjoyed that talk from Anam Thubten. Please check us out at thewisdomseat.org, and we have a couple other recordings with Anam Thubten in our podcast if you give them a search. All right, take care.